Car won't start? What a pity. Guess you can't drive it. Game on, old man. Backstory. When I first got my driver's license, 16, my parents wrote out a contract that stipulated that I had to use my father's car, 1991 Ford Taurus SHO, and free gas, provided my grades were maintained. This is how I became the default driver for my friends, because free gas and 4 doors. I maintained my grades, but boy did I do a number on the gas bill and wear and tear on the car. My father decided to do something about it. A few months into this joyous freedom, I go to drive to my friend's house, and the car won't start. I pop the hood and stare at it, but no idea what I'm looking at. My father just happens to walk by at this point. Father: "Aw, what's the matter? Car won't start? Guess you aren't going to be driving it." Ha! Walks away smirking. I know he sabotaged the car, but I don't know what's wrong. Know nothing about cars. I call my friends to tell them I can't make it. My father leaves to go somewhere in another car. I'm stranded and disgruntled. So I start poking around under the hood. Aha! A disconnected battery cable. Put it back on, tighten it up, and behold, the car starts. Come back home hours later to a grumpy father. Father: "Guess you figured it out." Me: "Ha! Found it." Father: "It never said it had to run in the contract." A few days later, it won't start again. A little more investigating. I figured out it was missing a fuse. The following week, it was swapped spark plug wires. And thus our dance continued. Him doing little things to disable the car, and me figuring out what he'd done. By the time the school year ended, I'd reordered the spark plug wires, reconnected about every sensor on the engine, reconnected the engine computer, the fuel pump harness, that one was fun, the engine control module, and many other things. Once, he'd even put a blown fuse in. That took a while. I even bought a repair manual for the thing and had my own tools, because he took to hiding his. I always thought I was getting one over on him when I finally figured it out and took the car. But now, I realize this was just his way to get me interested. By the end of the school year, I was pretty intimate with the car. I'd even taken to replacing other maintenance items myself, like the spark plugs, the fuel filter, and the air filter. I was hooked. I looked forward to figuring out what was wrong with the thing. One day, he'd finally run out of tricks. That was also the day he gave me his set of keys too, and it became my car. Thanks, Dad. As the father pulls out 2 crisp glasses of insert product placement here, they both clink glasses, take a sip, and end scene staring off into the sunset. Not saying it's fake, just saying I've probably seen this exact same thing played out 10 different ways on multiple different channels. Clients keep saying I'm telling the wrong appointment times, so I'm gonna make sure they hear correctly. So I recently started working at a new vet hospital as a receptionist, and every day part of my job is to make appointment reminder calls for the appointments the next day. Occasionally people will actually pick up, but most of the time I end up having to leave a voicemail. I basically have a transcript memorized because I say it the same way every time. Hi, this is my name from name of vet hospital. I'm calling to remind you, name of pet, has an appointment at appointment time tomorrow. Please don't feed any food before an appointment if you plan to have blood work done. Call us back at clinic number if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow at appointment time again. When people don't answer the phone, I leave a note, left message on machine, and then my initials. Well, for the past few weeks, people have been missing their appointment times pretty frequently. It's the first week of school here, and people who thought they'd have time don't. And our schedules are changing like crazy with cancellations and calls. But instead of telling the truth, or just admitting that they don't know what time the appointment was, and didn't listen to the voicemail, They tell the check-in desk that I must have told them the wrong time. So when I come in work today, I get chewed out. Apparently, a guy who had an appointment at 10:20 showed up at 11:20, telling them I told him the wrong time. I made a note on the appointment that said I left a message, which I would only do if I left a message. I know, it's revolutionary thinking here. And he tried to say I spoke to him over the phone and told him a time, which is obviously bullcrap. So my boss suggests I state the appointment time twice in the messages, which I pointed out I already do. Then she says, well, maybe you should slow down. Okay, fine. So today, when I did my calls, I made sure to record myself on every single call, considering the state I live in is a single-party consent state, meaning only one person being recorded needs to have consent to record. That person being me, stating the exact message I typed and about half speed. But this time, I make sure to state the appointment time twice, each time I had originally said the appointment time. So now, my voicemails are about 2 minutes long instead of the original 30-second message. The few people I have spoken with seemed irritated that they were on the phone so long, but they know their god-dang appointment time now, or else they'd better, or I'd be happy to show my boss the recordings the next time someone tries to blame me for giving the wrong appointment time. Ah yes, I also enjoy the finer things in life, such as potentially risking someone else's job just to save some minor embarrassment on my part. Aren't people just splendid? Made my boss, who barely worked, get reprimanded and fired by the director. So this story takes place about 3 years ago, when I was doing an internship alongside 2 of my friends from the same class. Not a native English speaker, also on phone, so expect mistakes. So to give some basic details, me and 2 friends got an internship at a large school under their IT department. Fix IT-related problems all over the school and fix problems for students, teachers, guests, etc. Now the job was okay, nothing to write home about, and the pay was $5 a day to make up for gas expenditures. So imagine working from 8 to 5, often having to finish up, stretching that from 8 to 6, for $25 a week for 4 months. So essentially slave labor in exchange for fulfilling a school requirement. So when we started, we met our boss in our shared office. We'll call him Ron. He seemed alright, not much of a talker. Someone you could tell a joke and he'd stare at you, not sure to react. So the first week went alright. He was supposed to have us tag along and show the ropes, but he's more or less just sent us out to do crap. Pretty crappy to do to a bunch of barely adult lads just starting their education. But regardless, we made it work. I, more or less, did Ron's job and told my friends what to do and how to do it, splitting up the jobs, saying who did what, etc. Ron's initial inaction became worse though. When he entered, he took a long coffee break, 5 minutes after entering, usually from 20 minutes to an hour, despite there being a coffee machine right outside our office. He would come back, do close to nothing, and take his lunch break at 11, ranging from 2 to 4 hours. And when he came back, he would take at least 2 more coffee breaks. To boil it down, on a good day, he would work 5 to 6 hours of his 9-hour contract. On a bad day, maybe 3 to 4 hours. After about 3 months of this, we were all tired of his bullcrap. We worked 4 extra hours on average a week, didn't learn crap, and barely had time for our own lunch breaks, which we usually ended up taking a quick bite in between phone calls or job. So I started following the exact details of the contract instead. Several smoke breaks, 1-hour lunch, etc. And got permission from the boss to take our breaks together since we didn't have time to meet any coworkers. As such, it'd be uncomfortable to take lunch breaks alone. It's worth noting Ron drove home during his lunch breaks, hence them being so long. And he was the main contact if the office phones were not answered. But he rarely answered his phone, it was usually off. So whenever Ron went on his break, we waited exactly 1 hour, his lunchtime, before going on our own break. And then we extended our break to 2 hours, usually arriving back at the office room before Ron had come back. Well, we carried this on for several weeks. Every time work had piled up, there were people waiting in front of the office. The phones had a dozen missed calls. Well, one day, we were on our break, and Ron calls saying his work phone was full of missed calls, obviously panicking, telling us to go to the office. Well, I politely inform him I just started my break, and he is supposed to be at the office himself, given his lunch break is long over. Right, Ron? Before saying that I'd see him in 50 minutes when our break is over. So we get back there and find the director talking loudly at him, and him deflecting, saying there must have been a schedule mix-up, etc. Well, we think it ended there. Ron observes the rules for a few days before falling into his old behavior, and at that point, our time is up. We say our goodbyes and go to the director to get our internship results. So he says we all did great, and he heard good things about us, but our attendance had not been good for the past 3 weeks, so he couldn't give us the full grade. So at that point, I stopped him and tell him the entire story about Ron and his breaks, and that we followed the rules to the letter. I also show him our work schedule, which is filled in and shows we were not skipping much of anything. Well, he pretty much flips his crap and basically thanks us for keeping the entire IT operation running, and that he will have a word with Ron, and that he will change our grades back. After that, I didn't hear anything, so I decided to message an ex-coworker from the internship to see what happened. Apparently, Ron got berated, told to fix his act, slipped back into his behavior, and got fired. Come on, Ron. If you got such a big, obvious bullseye on your head, you can't be petty when someone calls you out. If he would have just said nothing about the interns and not tried to be petty and get some revenge, then he would still have a job probably, but instead he decided to throw them under the bus, which just got it reversed and backed up on him. Alrighty guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Sorry if the readings were a little bit rough. My throat has gotten a little sore. I think I'm coming down with something. Hopefully it's gone in the next day or so, but anyways, if you like the story and you're new around here, consider subscribing. And if you really liked it, then maybe give it a thumbs up and a share. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.